Let's talk a little bit about where Kei is standing on the meta right now, my opinion on where she is on our tier list on Ludo and Waifus, and overall how you should be building her and what team composition she can fit in. As usual, before we start, hello the internet, welcome back to Ludo and Waifus. I'm Sefhi, your favorite gambling addict. Today's topic, Kei final verdict, if you wish, right? Final review, complete build, whatever you want to call this type of videos, honest review, whatever it is, right? Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Kei and how I would recommend building her, and of course where she's on the tier list. So we can start, if you guys want, with the tier list itself, and then we'll explain everything else, right? So TLDR, if you don't want to watch the whole video, when we're talking about B3s right now, Kei is a good unit. I know some people will disagree and some people will be like, but Sefhi, for example, why would be Kei a T1 while Isabel is a T2, arguably one of the strongest Electro DPSs now? And that's because Isabel fucking sucks. The only reason she works is Arcana. Isabel on her own at 1-1-1 does still amazing damage because Arcana. She is one of the worst DPSs in the game. So in my opinion, a character you can slot into any team, burst or off burst, and if you build her with attack rather than elemental, you can use her on neutral content. It's gonna be always a better pick over something like Isabel, just because how dependent she is on Arcana. And then you are praying also that Arcana will get more usage later on, or maybe she's gonna be tied to Isabel forever, just like Trina and Scarlet. So that said, that's why in my opinion she's a T1 character. Now something also important that I know some people will say is like, oh Sefhi, how can Kei be a T1 while Mihara is in this tier, clearly a stronger character as well, right? Again, I'm not rating characters of, oh, this character is a 10.0, this character is a 9.2, this character is an 8.2. I'm just ranking them of what in my opinion is the current meta, what characters are great to use overall on all type of contents, what's niche situational, filler characters, and then all the trash Shift Up refuses to fix, right? That's how I rank personally characters, because I think it's more manageable and easier for players to understand as well. That said, let's talk a little bit about how to build her, and then we'll go over all of these things, right? So as you guys can see, when it comes to skills, I'm recommending a 7, 7, 1, or 7. And the reason as to why you want to go 1 or 7 is just based on, are you bursting with her or not? Now, I think it's a 777 because the reality is that you are getting more usage of Kei if you can put her anywhere, be it burst or off burst. So the level 7 skill on burst is always good because if you decide you want to use her bursting, then it's leveled up. If you decide you want to go off burst, it's still fine because she will still be performing really good with skill 1 and 2. Now, there is still no clarification on skill 1 when it comes to the pellets. This is not pellets, this is when you land a critical hit. No pellets. So there is still no clarification on this. If they were to change this, I hope it's just a means translation like you guys were seeing on the previous video, because on the Japanese kit it says the same, pellets, not bullets. So we'll see. I don't think they will nerf it because usually gacha games do not nerf characters after release. Shout out to Limbus Company for being one of the exceptions, but as you all know, gacha games usually don't nerf, so we'll see what they do, but that's why she's working so well, be it on a burst or off burst, because she's constantly proccing this skill 1. And in fact, if they don't change this, you could be taking skill 1 to level 10 just for the extra damage that you will be getting, but it's only from like a 20% to a 23%, I believe it is, on level 10. So it's expensive for the return you are getting unless you're a min-maxer for raids. That's for the skills. What about the build? Well, she has like a pretty basic bitch build, I will say. When we talk about the cube, of course, it's going to be resilience because there is nothing else she can benefit from. You could be running something like the hit rate cube if you want, but it's kind of pointless, at least right now, unless your assault cube or onslaught, which one it is? It's assault, right? Yes, unless your assault cube is heavily invested, like level 13, 14, of course, you're going to be always taking more advantage of resilience. She is a slow girl. 1.8 seconds to reload on an SMG is slow. So resilience is the priority. Now, when it comes to the gear, there is two alternatives here. You go all in attack critical damage, or you also try to fit in some elemental for electro weak content. Electro right now is really stacked. So you can build her with attack if you want only, and of course critical damage and critical rate lines in order to take advantage of her kit. Now, important, I'm gonna show you my lines so you guys can see what I got after re-rolling, but the test I was running were this morning on my Kei that was different stats. So this morning my Kei had 63 elemental, 37 crit damage, and 7% hit rate. As you can see, no attack on this test. I have re-rolled her, but for those tests, that was my K. I was re-rolling her earlier, I used less than 20 rocks, and I'm pretty happy because I got more elemental and attack. So I got a crit lane, a crit damage black line, elemental right there with a 23. I got another elemental and my first attack line right here finally. I need to reroll it, but it's nice. I also got here another crit damage blue, an elemental, and then lastly I got here attack and elemental. So I'm happy with this. I don't think I'm gonna be rerolling her any further because again, Stellar Blade is next and I already have no rocks, guys. 15 rocks. I am completely fucked, okay? But I'm happy with the rerolls. That was like 20-ish rocks for a black line, a blue line, and basically 3 or 4 elementals. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's it about how to build her. The only thing you need to avoid, of course, is max ammunition capacity, alright? Please, for the love of God, avoid that as much as you can. Regarding that, before we go into the pros and the cons, let's actually show these damage differences on Electro, right? This was on Union Raid Hard Mode Land Eater. And as you can see, with my characters that you guys can pause right here, so you guys can see what my Scarlet has, what my Cynthia, my Private has, and then what my Ain also has. So with that in mind, right, as you can see, also based on course, my K is the lowest, only 1 copy, and everyone has a purple doll, phase 0, but Ain and Cinderella have a phase 15 SR doll. A lot of information, but hopefully you guys are still with me. So my Scarlet and my K, as you can see, pair out, even out 1 billion, both of them, pretty close. If you run this multiple times, it's gonna be sometimes K better, sometimes Scarlet, but it's pretty even out. I am running maids on all of these teams because maids, even though are distribute damage, they are universal buffers. Not even for crit characters, they are universal buffers. So I decided to run both of them with volume for those tests. So as you can see, pretty even out. My Private Core 3, better elemental lines, better attack, doing 1.3 versus 900, 1 billion, depending on where you're running. Still, this is fantastic. This is Maid Private, a character that for me is Core 3, that has way more investment and is doing 1.3 versus 900, almost 1 billion as a base copy, right? So pretty good. Then I put her with Ain, and they are doing, once again, pretty similar damage, but to be fair, this Ain is on auto. If you spam shots with your Ain, you're gonna be getting a higher damage output. Still, it's a nice comparison to have. And then lastly, just for the memes, this team does not benefit Cindy at all, but still, she destroys everything, alright? Just as a small reference right there. So that's it about damage. Like I was saying earlier, this is why, in my opinion, she is at a T1 character. This is a unit that, even outside of Electro, is gonna be doing really good damage. Doesn't matter if it's bursting or as an off-burst unit. Fantastic character, but right now it's really hard being like, oh yeah, just guys, go all in, pull for this character. If Tachi, Raven, nah, fuck that. So yes, good unit that can go for the wishlist. If you're a raider, you already got 1 copy most likely if you care about raids and high scores, right? If not, you're good, don't worry too much. She's not a limited character. Let's go over the pros and the cons lastly that I've added for her. So when it comes to the pros, like I was saying earlier, plug and play DPS that can be used both off burst and bursting. Damage loss, from what I've seen, it's minimal. That if you go burst or off burst, there is not that much of a difference, just because the skill 1 keeps proccing no matter what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, you are always losing stacks at the end of full burst or not. So the damage difference is gonna be minimal. And then cheap to build, because she's like a character that scaling past level 7 is not that good. I wouldn't recommend going level 10 almost to anyone. As an off burst character, 771. Going full attack and crit damage, you can ignore elemental. It's pretty cheap to build in contrast to other main DPSs or hyper carries, right? And then when it comes to the cons, couple things. The first one is that stacks on skill 1, getting clear every full burst while having 120 ammo. It's an interesting choice. Shift Up makes kits that kind of contradicts themselves, right? And then that's their way of limiting these characters, not making them too strong, be it with her, be it with Breedy. Plenty of characters that they are doing the same thing, or even with Trina and Arcana, they are limiting those pilgrims even though they are clearly buffers for them, right? And then lastly, if you are bursting too quick, she cannot properly get the stacks. So depending on your team composition, you might be breaking her stacks and she might not be able to get a good crit rate. Most likely you're gonna be running auto, but it's still something to consider if you care about min-maxing your damage. So those are the pros and the cons, and like I was saying earlier, how to properly build her. I feel T1 is a safe spot to put her, at least for now. I know some people might disagree and would put her on a T2 as a niche situational character, and I could, depending on the situation, agree. But like I was saying, this is my tier list, so she goes into T1, alright? And Milk stays at the T5 alone. Exactly. Completely biased tier list. That's it. Let me know your opinions. As usual, boys, I always look at feedback when it comes to the tier list, characters, and what you guys feel should be higher or lower, always asking other content creators too, and I move things around based on that feedback. All that yapping aside is gonna be for this one. No stream today because I basically threw all of my food earlier and I was like, okay, I'm gonna just lay down, take a nap. So all that said, that's gonna be for this one. As usual, love you all bastards. Good luck with your pool dinner rates, and I'll see you on the next one.